Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Week 7 Monday Night Football showdown slate on Draftkings. We have the Saints and the Seahawks playing this Monday night. This is another not great primetime game, I would say. Right now, this game has a very, very low total. We're not expecting many points scored here. I think the weather in this game could be a little sloppy too. This is probably not going to be much of a shootout or anything. Geno Smith still the quarterback for Seattle right now. No Russell Wilson, he still remains out. So I feel like this would be a pretty good game if these teams were like fully healthy. But because they're not, it's not going to be the best one. But we still got some money to up top to win tonight. DraftKings still running out pretty big tournaments. Not a milli maker for this slate, but we still do have 500K to first, top prize pool or whatever, 1.5 million in total prizes for this Monday Night Football showdown slate. And we do also have NBA today. I will be covering NBA. I think we have a 9-game slate. I'll have an NBA video posted for today as well. So 2 videos going up, showdown slate video and NBA video. In terms of live streaming, not sure yet if I'm going to be streaming for both NFL and NBA today. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But yeah, guys, we're gonna talk through this showdown slate, break it all down like we always do, go from top to bottom, hit on all the playable options, and then towards the end of the video, we'll quickly kind of talk through roster construction, how I'm looking to build out my lineups, who I like to play at captain. We'll do all that towards the end of the video. But before we get started, guys, as always, please do hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button as well if you are new here. And comment down below and let me know some of your favorite plays for tonight's slate. Maybe let me know how your Week 7 main slate went. Me personally, I had a terrible main slate. I was on vacation this weekend. I went to Atlanta for the Braves game. I wanted to leave Sunday morning. I wanted to leave the hotel early Sunday morning so I could come home, make lineups, and play the Week 7 slate. And I probably shouldn't have because I did not do very well. I was exposed. I had a lot of exposure to like a lot of the teams that just didn't do well. So had a lot of Chiefs stacks. They only obviously put up 3 points. They were terrible. I played a ton of Derrick Henry in tournaments. He was mediocre. Just wasn't a great main slate, but we got a showdown slate to win some money on, hopefully. And yeah, guys, let's go ahead and start off at the top. So we got Alvin Kamara as the most expensive option. Kind of not normal to where you don't see the quarterback as the most expensive option. We have a running back as the most expensive option here, and it makes sense. I mean, Kamara has been great this year. He's been getting a massive workload, something we haven't really seen in past seasons. I mean, Kamara's always been a heavy utilized running back, but they're using him like a true workhorse. I mean, he's getting 20, 25 carries. He's still getting some good pass game usage. Some of the pass game usage isn't as good as when Drew Brees was the quarterback, but he still did get like 8 targets last game. 4 targets in week 3, 6 targets. He's still going to probably get 3 to 5, if not more than that, targets per game. And the carries are going to be there. He's going to get all the goal line work. He's literally a workhorse running back. And it's a great matchup, too. Seattle has really struggled against opposing running backs this season. In terms of rushing yards allowed, they're top 5 in rushing yards allowed to running backs. In terms of receptions allowed to running backs, they're also top 5 in that category, and they've allowed the second most receiving yards to running backs. So they've struggled on the ground against running backs, and they've struggled against pass-catching running backs too. And obviously Kamara is an elite pass-catching running back. So on this slate, I think he's one of the best options. He probably is the best play overall. I think he projects better than the quarterbacks, and normally quarterbacks are always going to be like the top projected options just in terms of raw projection. But I have a feeling Kamara will come out higher projected than both the quarterbacks here. So yeah, even though Kamara's expensive, I really want to try and find a way to get him in because I think it's very likely that he's the highest scoring player overall on this slate tonight. And obviously, if you can play him at captain, I think he's a great captain option too. And I do want to talk about his projection on Prize Picks. So currently, Prize Picks has him projected for 20 fantasy points. There's 2 of his overs that I like. One of them is over on 20 fantasy points. The other one is over on 30.5 receiving yards. If you want to go with either one of those, I think it's fine. I like both. Honestly, you can't do both in the same entry. But over 20 fantasy points for Kamara, over 30.5 receiving yards, I like both those. We'll just do the receiving yards for now since it's the lower number. I feel like this one, I feel a little bit better about this one just because the number is so low. But you look at his receiving yards this year, I mean, we know he's going to get a ton of pass game usage. We know Kamara's going to get 5-6 targets a game. He's gone over this number only once this season, but the 2 games he came up just short of 30 receiving yards. We talked about how the Seahawks so far this year allowing the 4th most receptions to opposing running backs, allowing the 2nd most receiving yards to opposing running backs. Great spot here for Kamara. He should easily be able to eclipse 30.5 receiving yards. So that's one over I like on Prize Picks. And if you guys want to check out Prize Picks, they're more of a player prop based site. They obviously have, you just pick the over or the under on the projections they have listed. They have a lot of projections available for tonight's game. Pass yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, completions, interceptions. They also have fantasy point projections too. Again, you just pick the over or the under. You can win up to 10 extra money on Prize Picks. If you want to check them out, use promo code Noah, link down below in the description, or just type in that code whenever you sign up for Prize Picks and check them out and see everything that they do have to offer. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the next couple options. So we'll start off with the quarterbacks here. So Jameis Winston's coming in at 11,800. Geno Smith coming in at 9,400. I think the quarterbacks are fine on this slate. I don't think the quarterbacks are going to be must for me. Normally I do like to play at least one of the two quarterbacks. It is pretty unlikely that neither quarterback makes the winning lineup. You don't see that happen too often. But both these quarterbacks have not been elite this year. I don't want to say elite. Neither one of these quarterbacks have been like great fantasy options this year. Like I don't think I've played Jameis Winston like at all this season. But on a showdown slate, I think he is a pretty strong option. I mean, he's going to project out as one of the better options overall. He is expensive, but I think you can definitely play Jameis Winston. I would greatly prefer him over Geno Smith. Geno Smith in the 2 starts we've seen him make, he's not been great. 10 DK points against the Rams, 11 DK points last week against Pittsburgh. At home against New Orleans is not the best spot. It's good that he's playing at home, but New Orleans does have a pretty good defense overall. Geno Smith, I don't think is really that good of a quarterback, honestly. The Seahawks have been talking about how they're looking for like free agents right now. They got in contact with Cam Newton. They're thinking he might come to Seattle and maybe back up Russell Wilson or be the starter while Russell Wilson's still injured. So, I mean, Geno Smith, you're getting a starting quarterback at 9,400. So for that reason, I think he's viable. But I do prefer Jameis Winston if I'm choosing one of the two quarterbacks. I think both quarterbacks are obviously in play. Normally, every slate, both quarterbacks are going to be in play for me. But I do have a pretty big stance. I would definitely prefer Winston over Geno Smith if I can only choose one. Then you got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Both these guys, without Russell Wilson at quarterback, with Geno Smith, at quarterback, both these guys, their upside is definitely not nearly as high, and their floor is way lower. DK Metcalf did have a pretty good game with Geno Smith at quarterback in the Rams game, but last week against Pittsburgh, he got 7 targets, but only 6 catches for 58 yards. Tyler Lockett, on the other hand, really hasn't been able to get much of a connection with Geno Smith. He got 10 targets in that game against the Rams, but only 5 catches for 57 yards. He also got 7 targets last week, but only 2 catches for 35 yards. The targets for Lockett and DK are going to be there because they're clearly the 2 best pass-catching options for the Seattle team. But with Geno Smith at quarterback, you just kind of have to temper your expectations a little bit. I still think DK and Lockett are both in play for me. If I have to choose one, I think I do prefer the savings on Lockett. When it comes to choosing between DK and Lockett, I really feel like it's a coin flip. You never know which one's going to put up the big game. I think I'll take the savings and play Lockett here, but really, if you're playing a lot of lineups, I think you're going to want to have exposure to both, DK and Lockett, obviously. But then the next option, Marquez Callaway, 8,600. Marquez Callaway at this price point, I don't think I'm really going to go to. We know this Saints team, they don't really throw the ball a ton. Jameis Winston has had some good games lately, but he's still not going to be a quarterback that drops back and throws it 40, 45 times like he used to do when he was at Tampa Bay. This is a very run-heavy team. They're going to hand the ball off to Alvin Kamara as much as possible. So, the upside for Marquez Callaway, I don't think is really that high. You're going to need him to catch 2 touchdowns like he did last week to really put up a ceiling game at this price point. So, if I'm going to pay for a receiver this expensive, I'll just play Lockett or I'll just play Metcalf, who I think are just way better options than Callaway. At Callaway's price point, he's probably just going to be someone that I do avoid here. But then the next guy, Alex Collins, 7,400. Alex Collins, once again, should be starting for Seattle come Monday night. They've already ruled out Chris Carson. Chris Carson's been out the last 3 games, and we've seen Alex Collins be somewhat of a workhorse back. Last week, he did actually get 21 touches. He was very heavily utilized last week against Pittsburgh, and he ran the ball pretty well. He was pretty efficient. But the last 2 weeks, I should say, with Chris Carson out, I think Carson got injured in the San Francisco game. Maybe not. Maybe it's the last 2 games. So, yeah, the last 2 games when Chris Carson has been out, 71% of the snaps for Alex Collins against the Rams, and then 60% last week against Pittsburgh. So, I think we can realistically expect him to play about 60 to 70% of the snaps. He's going to be their number 1 running back. I expect he gets probably 12 to 15 carries and a few targets as well. The matchup's pretty bad. New Orleans has been very stout against the run this year. They've always been a pretty tough team to run on. So far this season, they've allowed the 2nd least rushing yards per game. Only, past the Buccaneers have allowed the least rushing yards. Saints are 2nd least. So, the matchup's not good. I don't think Alex Collins is going to be very efficient here. But you're just kind of banking on him being a workhorse running back. You're banking on the touches he's going to get and just hoping that he can maybe turn something, into those, or he can put up a big game with those touches. Again, I don't think he's going to be able to be very efficient, but if you get a couple goal line touchdowns, that could be all that you need at his price point. So I think the workload for Alex Collins will be there, and I think that alone makes him viable. But the matchup is very tough. That's the only concern I do have here. But he's still someone I would have in my player pool. But then when we're getting down below 6K, looking for some value, value on this slate, it's not great. There are some playable options down here, but there's no guys down here that I just feel great about. DJ Dallas was, pretty heavily utilized last week as the backup running back. He got nine touches. He was pretty heavily utilized in the passing game, got 5 catches, 5 targets. He played, let's see how many snaps he played. He played 34% of the snaps last week. Travis Homer didn't play much at all. He only played 8% of the snaps. I think DJ Dallas has kind of solidified himself as the backup running back right now. But at 5,200, that's just too expensive for DJ Dallas. Given that he's the backup still, I would just try and get up to Collins or just play some of these cheaper guys we're going to talk about, like a Gerald Everett, 4,400. I think Gerald Everett is in play for me for value. He still is the number 1 tight end for Seattle. He played on 48% of the snaps last week. Will Dissly did play more snaps than Everett did last week, but I'm pretty sure Everett still ran more routes than Dissly. It might not have been by much, but I think you're still going to see Everett get probably 3 to 5 targets. He's not a guy that really has much upside, especially with Geno Smith at quarterback. The upside is for sure capped on Gerald Everett, but you're really just hoping for a touchdown. You're hoping that they get in the red zone, he catches a touchdown. If he does that, he's probably going to be a good value. I think Gerald Everett makes some sense as just kind of like a touchdown or bust value play. He would definitely be in my player pool. Then you have the kickers. I think the kickers on this slate look perfectly fine. Normally I don't play both kickers, but I think one of the 2 kickers for value is for sure something you can look to. Will Dissly at 3,400, again, he played more snaps than Everett did last week, but I'm pretty sure, again, they ran the same amount of routes. I think Everett's the better tight end, so I probably would just prefer Everett. But Dissly is viable if you want to go there. I don't have that much interest in Dissly. The defenses I don't love on the slate. Rarely do I play the defenses. Could the defenses have a good game here? Jameis Winston, we know, will turn the ball over. Geno Smith has not looked great at all. He'll turn the ball over too. I wouldn't be surprised if the defenses do well. But for me, when it comes to defenses on showdown slates, I tend to just fade them and then hope that, there's no scoop and score, pick six, touchdown, defensive touchdown, really. As long as there isn't a defensive touchdown, or as long as one team doesn't get like a ton of interceptions, a ton of sacks, you're probably going to be okay fading the defenses. So that's probably going to be my approach there when it comes to the defenses for this slate. But then when you get down to some of these really cheap options, there's a couple guys down here I do have interest in. First off, Freddie Swaim, I think at 2K, is playable on this showdown slate. Freddie Swaim is someone you're really never going to consider on like a full Sunday main slate. But on a showdown slate with a limited player pool, he is clearly the wide receiver 3 right now for Seattle. He played on 78% of the snaps last week. He's played on at least 43% of the snaps in every single game this season. He's going to play probably 60 to 70% of the snaps here. He's probably going to run, maybe 20, 25 routes. He probably gets 4 or 5 targets. At 2K, again, I don't have a ton of confidence in Freddie Swaim, but he's 2K, and he's probably going to get like 4 or 5 targets. I think at this price point, he is someone I do have a good amount of interest in for value, especially if we want to try and fit in Kamara, Jameis Winston, DK, Lockett. If we want to fit these top guys in, we're going to have to play some of these cheaper options. Freddie Swaim is someone I do like as a cheap value, and I want to hit on his prop over on Prize Picks. Currently, Prize Picks has Freddie Swaim only projected for 16.5 receiving yards. That is a very low number. Obviously, it's a pretty good projection for Freddie Swaim. You look at his numbers this year, he's only gone over this number in 2 of their 5 games, or actually 2 of their 6 games, I should say. But again, he's going to be on the field a ton. He's going to play probably 60 to 70% of the snaps. He's clearly the wide receiver 3 for Seattle right now. If he gets 4 to 5 targets, there's a good chance he catches 1 or 2 balls and goes over 16.5 receiving yards. So I do like over 16.5 receiving yards for Freddie Swaim. That's one pick. I like on Prize Picks as well to go along with the over on 30.5 receiving yards for Alvin Kamara. And then I also like over on Alvin Kamara's fantasy points, but you can't play, you can't have the same player twice in a projection. So if you want to do over on Kamara's fantasy points and his receiving yards, you'll have to do like 2 separate entries. But those are a few picks I like for Prize Picks tonight. Again, guys, if you want to check them out, use promo code NOAH. Link down below in the description. You'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. So that way, if you deposit $100, they'll match that, give you an additional $100 to play with. Or if you deposit $50, they'll double that, give you another $50. So check them out. Use code NOAH when you do sign up for Prize Picks and get that deposit bonus. But yeah, Freddie Swaim, I like for value on the site. And I think Kenny Stills is a pretty good value as well at only $1,600. We already know that Deontay Harris is going to be out for the Saints. And with Deontay Harris banged up last week, he did play last week, but he didn't play much at all. He only played a few snaps before he got injured. We saw Kenny Stills play. He was kind of like the guy that filled in for Deontay Harris. He played 71% of the snaps last week. With Deontay Harris already ruled out, I'm expecting Kenny Stills to be the wide receiver 2 for the Saints alongside Marquez Callaway. I think Callaway and Stills are going to be the two guys that, line up on the outside, and then they'll probably like use Ty Montgomery a little bit in the slot. I mean, they like their receiver core. I mean, they have Chris Hogan. I guess they could give some snaps to, but I do expect Kenny Stills to be the wide receiver 2 for the Saints, and he's $1,600. So, yeah, I mean, you're getting a wide receiver 3 at $2K, and Freddie Swaim, you're getting a wide receiver 2, and Kenny Stills at $1,600. These are two guys I think are in play for value. Now, obviously, the upside on these guys is not massive. They are very unlikely to put up like 20 DK points, but it's not like we need them to put up that much. I mean, if we get 7, 8 DraftKings points from Swaim and Stills, there's a good chance they both make the optimal lineup, especially if a lot of the top guys do well, and you're going to have the top guys to be like all the top guys do well. They're going to all be in the winning lineup. The only way they all make the winning lineup is if somebody down here puts up a decent game to where you can fit in those top guys. That could be Swaim, that could be Stills. So both Freddie Swaim and Kenny Stills I do like for cheap value plays. And that's probably it for the player pool. I don't really have much interest in anyone else, I don't think. So we can talk about roster construction real quick before we do in the video. For me on this slate, like I think Alvin Kamara is just the clear best play overall. I think he's going to be very popular, but I think it's really hard to get away from Alvin Kamara. I want to try and play him at captain if I can, and I think we can make it work because if we do play both Swaim and Stills, who I like for cheap values, you plug those two guys in with Kamara at captain, you've got 9K left per player. So you could probably fit like Jameis Winston into this build. You could maybe fit Geno Smith as well if you wanted to play both quarterbacks, and that leaves you enough to play like, let's see, like you could play Gerald Everett, you could play one of the two kickers, you could play, like a Will Dissly, but something like this I kind of like on this slate, or you could take out Everett, play one of the two kickers, either Myers or Johnson, whichever one you want to go with. Or if you don't want to play Geno Smith, you don't have much confidence in him, you could play DK Metcalf. That would leave you enough to play, again, like Everett or one of the two kickers. You could play Lockett, and that wouldn't really change much. You'd still be looking at the same guys, but that's kind of what I'm liking on this slate, just kind of how I'm looking to approach it. I think Alvin Kamara at captain is going to be chalky, but it's really hard to get away from Alvin Kamara at captain. But I think if you are playing multiple lineups, it does make sense to get some exposure to a guy like DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. I don't think I'd be playing the quarterbacks at captain on this slate, but I think the receivers, the running backs, that's kind of where I'm looking to. I don't think there's really any cheap captains I'm going to be going to. I do like Swaim and Stills for value, but I don't know if those guys have enough upside to, be the winning captain. I'm probably just going to use them more like in the flex, but yeah, that's just a quick overview of tonight's Showdown slate, guys. Again, I appreciate you watching. I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope it did help. If you enjoyed, click that like button down below. Click that subscribe button as well. And comment down below and let me know some of your favorite plays for tonight's game. And again, I would love to hear how your Week 7 went. I'm always reading the comment section, always trying to reply to every single comment. I do always appreciate your guys' comments and feedback. But good luck on this slate, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next one. Good luck, guys. Peace.